Hi there everyone, it's Melly here, and I've just come here today to do a short little tutorial on sewing curved blocks for my Wallflower quilt pattern. Now hopefully you have purchased the Wallflower quilt pattern and you have all of your pieces cut out, and I'm basing this tutorial on that assumption. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work here today with the template 1 blocks. So as you can see here, I've got a coloured template 1A block, and I've also got a dark grey template 1B block. Now the reason I've chosen the template 1 blocks is that they are the smallest of the templates from this quilt pattern, and as a result they actually are the most difficult to sew a nice curve into. You'll find that when you get up to the larger blocks, especially the largest 12.5 inch blocks, that it is a lot easier to ease those curves together, and they actually do it quite naturally as you sew. But for these smaller blocks, there's more of an angle, and it's a little bit more tricky to get that nice and neat and even. So what you need to do is, as you can see here on my 1A block, I already have marked the position there, the halfway position that's on your template, and also I've done the same there. You can hopefully see that little white marking on my grey block. So what you're going to do is you're going to take those two markings and you're going to put them right sides together. So we're just going to make sure they're really evenly positioned on top of each other, and that those two raw edges are sitting against each other nicely. Get one of your pins and pin that in place. Now what we're going to do is going to do either end first to secure. So we'll grab this end, we're going to just swivel it around. Don't worry too much about the things matching at the moment. We're just going to get that end. This is all we want to match at this stage. It's okay if that black piece is a little bit angled there, as long as you know when you sew your 1/4 inch seam that they're going to be matching at that point. So it may just naturally angle a little bit like that, and that's quite okay. So I'm just going to pin it there at the end point, and then I'm going to do the same also at the starting point, and just pin that nicely together. Now also, as you'll see on the pattern, I've also suggested to then do another pin sort of midway between that. Now you're going to see here that the curved, or the A block, the orange one, is going to feel a lot bigger. Don't worry about that. Actually, where they're going to sew with their 1/4 inch seam, they do end up being equal size, but it's just the way it works with the curved blocks. So with your fingers, just kind of maneuver it, sort of make sure you've got the same sort of amount of loose orange fabric at either side of that midpoint. Even up the raw edges and pin in place. And then the same on the other half. Just with your fingers, kind of make sure it's fairly equally placed. So you've got a bit of orange slack on either side. Raw edges are neatly together, and then pin that in place. So that's all we need to do with pinning. Look, if you were really nervous, you could continue. So obviously you can now continue on to do that middle point and continue on. And look, the more you pin, to be honest with you, the easier it's going to be and the neater the result. But I find when you're making a quilt with so many blocks, you really don't want to be pinning too much more than that. And certainly with the larger blocks, there's not really any need. So once I've pinned to that stage, I'm pretty confident that I can go ahead and start sewing. So what I'm going to do is pop this onto my machine here, and I'm just going to make sure that that first one is nice and even, nicely placed. And I'm just going to put my foot down at about a 1/4 inch seam. I haven't got my 1/4 inch foot on here, but I can see the 1/4 inch seam there on my machine markings. And I'm just going to secure my needle down just to make sure I'm starting in the right point. And then I'm just going to start my sewing here. Do a little bit of a reverse. Always make sure you secure your stitches. Okay, now I feel confident to take that pin out now. And then as we're sewing, what you're wanting to do is go nice and slowly, and you'll see how here with my fingers, I'm just kind of easing that edge so it sits nicely together. Now you just want to go nice and slow, do a few stitches. Now if you need to, you'll see how this material naturally starts puckering. You can lift up your foot and you can kind of just ease it down. Just keep making it smooth and get around to that next pin spot. So just think about between each pin at any given time. Don't worry about working any further ahead than that with your curve. Again here, if you need to put your foot up, it can help. Just ease with your fingers there. Make sure there's no gathers, no puckers. That's nicely eased in together again there. And then we can sew a few more stitches. I just recommend after every few stitches, just again, make sure it's all going nicely and evenly. Make sure there's no puckers coming in your next, half an inch to 1 inch of sewing. Again, I'm going to put my foot up. Then we get into the next section. So look, the slower you take this and the more you ease that in, the lovelier a result you're going to get. I mean, that's just the way it kind of goes. You could sew this really quickly, but I think you're going to find that you're going to get a lot of puckers and you're not going to get a very square block in the end. So again, just making sure everything fits nicely. Never pull, don't pull anything. Make sure that they're just easing together nicely. Always this end bit can be where you get most of the gathers, so make sure you just pull that kind of excess back material back. Again, ease it in, really using your fingers to hold this in place. I think that needs to get pushed in a little bit more. There we go. I find in this last bit that you actually need to sometimes just adjust things a little bit more often. Go down, a few more stitches. And then we're just going to get to this last bit. Again, use your fingers, just ease it around. Try and make sure those raw edges are nicely together. Get to the end, secure a few stitches, and we're done. I'm going to cut my thread. Now you'll see that that's all sewn with a nice 1/4 inch foot. So what we're going to do next is we're going to press it. So I'm just going to go and do that now, and then I'll show you this block. So you'll see that obviously we just pull that out. I'm going to press it. You can already see there how it's creating such a lovely curve. But I'm just going to press this now, and then I'll be back to show you the finished product. Okay, so I've just given that a bit of a press now. You'll see that you just press the block A seam towards the template B seam. That's just how it naturally wants to go to maintain the curve of that larger piece. So you just press it out from the circle. You can press it on both sides if you want, but you'll see how, look, we just have a lovely curve there. It's really lovely and neat. It's smooth, and just taking that little bit of extra care with pinning at regular intervals and stopping your sewing, putting up your foot and just adjusting and leveling everything out just really makes all the difference. I know before I made this quilt I had never sewn curved seams before. I have to be honest, I was a little bit nervous about it. But hopefully you've seen from this tutorial that there's absolutely nothing nothing to be nervous about when doing this. It's just about taking the time and care, and you'll end up with as beautiful a result as this. So good luck in sewing together your quilt. Please share it with me if you get to your completed quilt stage. I love seeing what people do and the fabric choices that you make. I hope you love the pattern, and I hope you really enjoy that quilt. Have a good day. Thanks.